My name, by the way, is Wendy Galerter, and I'm just one of the co-hosts who making this meeting possible tonight. Many of you are probably already familiar with Simon Rosenberg. He came to my attention after he got profiled in the Atlantic magazine and also the Washington Post and other publications for being one of the first people to forecast that the red wave was not going to be a red wave at all. It was going to be a dribble, and not even that it was going to be actually one of the more consequential elections for Democrats in a positive way in a long time in 2022. Since then, Simon Rosenberg has gone on and using his expertise and his experience in TV news and also in national politics. And he was, by the way, part of the Bill Clinton war room when Bill Clinton was being elected for president, and many, many other Democratic efforts. He's turned to a new venture called Hopium Chronicles, which he's going to be talking about as part of his talk tonight. Now, it's my privilege and very great honor to introduce someone who's given me and many others a lot of energy and a lot of hope to do the work that we're doing, which is to defend our democracy and to expand our democracy. So with that, Simon, take it away.
Thanks, Wendy. And I think everyone needs a help desk Larry. Is that what you're hearing? I think that's a great concept, and you need to export that across the whole country. So listen, thanks everybody very much for the opportunity to be with you tonight. And if it's okay, Wendy, what I'd like to do is maybe speak for like 15 minutes and then we'll just take lots of questions. Is that good? Okay. Great. I'll give you my basic wrap. And I also want to acknowledge that my three kids all learned how to surf on the Hoya Shores and beach. And we've spent I try to come out there as often as I can. And so I'm a San Diego tourist for many years. And so it's an honor to be with all of you. It's one of my favorite places to go in the United States. So in 2022, as we think about where we are now, let's go back for a minute and let's talk about what happened in 2022. In 2022, there were really two elections. There was a bluer election that happened inside the battleground states. And there was a redder election that happened outside the battleground. You know, this election was an extraordinary election. It was the third election in a row where we outperformed expectations. We won 2018 by 8.5%. We won 2020, flipped the House in 2018. In 2020, we won the White House, unseated an incumbent president, and flipped the Senate. A huge set of achievements. And in 2022, with high inflation, low Biden approval, the red wave that we were told was coming, we actually did extraordinary things. We picked up 3 governorships, we picked up a Senate seat, we picked up 3 state legislative chambers. It was one of the most remarkable midterm performances in American history. And in many ways, as I spend more time with the data, it was almost a more remarkable performance than what we had in 2018 and 2020. We not only picked up and held our own in these places, but in Arizona, there were 7 states in the battlegrounds where we actually gained ground. We gained ground in Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. We got to 59% of the vote in Pennsylvania, 57% in 59% in Colorado, 57%. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired today. I've been a little sick, and I apologize, Wendy. 57% in Pennsylvania, 55% in Michigan, 54% in New Hampshire. We just got to 56% in Wisconsin. In 2022, we actually gained ground in many of these states and made them harder for any Republican to win in 2024. It was an amazing collective performance. And it would happen because of all of you. It happened because of the money that our grassroots gave, where our candidates had 4 to 5 to 6 to 1 cash on hand advantages, unprecedented in the modern era. And those big campaigns that you all helped fund then created the biggest grassroots operations that we've ever had in a midterm operation that many of you were able to plug into through texting and postcarding and through phone calling. And we built this massive machine, and we were able to control the information environment and make sure the right-wing noise machine didn't bully our candidates around. And we were able to push the early vote to at an extraordinary level. We were able to actually outperform the early vote in 2022. We outperformed 2018 and 2020 in 2022 in the early vote. An incredible thing in a year where they were supposed to have the energy and we were supposed to be non-energized. In fact, the exact opposite happened, right? We were the energized force in this election. But the admonition is that where we didn't build these big campaigns, and we fell back. We fell back in California. We fell back in New York. We fell back in Texas and Florida. And it was a reminder that they're still louder than we are. They still have the ability to control the information environment in the United States. They can dictate the discourse daily in this country. And it's why, as we go forward, I think we have to think about a few things, right? And if I can wave my Harry Potter magic wand over politics, there are two things I want all of us, I think, have to focus on this year. One is we have to get louder. And we have to not just build these big campaigns that we've built, which we're really good at now. And the grassroots of the Democratic Party has never been stronger. And all of you are here because, the energy that you have. And so you don't want to let your democracy slip away, right? That's why we're all here. We're actually scared that if we don't show up and do the work, that something terrible could happen to the country. And we've gotten really good at this. And the grassroots of the Democratic Party is now stronger than it's ever been in my 30 years doing this. But we have to do another thing now, which is we have to start participating in the information debate every day, 24/7, 365. It's what they do. We've got to close the loudness gap, as I call it. And the way to think about this is imagine, I worked in the war room for Bill Clinton 31 years ago. And the way we think of the war room is it's like, 20 sweaty kids drinking Red Bulls, getting yelled at by James Carville, right? And produce, and doing the work. But now we have to think of the war room as a million people, proud patriots who love their country, getting up every day, spreading a little bit of good information about Joe Biden and the country through their networks. Tucker Carlson reached 3 million people a night. If a million of us reach 10 people a day, that's 10 million people. That's 3 times as many as Tucker did. We have more agency and power here to push back on their loudness than we understand. We've just never been asked to do this. You've been asked to do all this other stuff, right? I think we can do this too. And I'm giving you permission. I'm creating a permission structure for you to go be an information warrior for your democracy. I've built Hopium Chronicles, my Substack, in part to provide you information to be able to go out and be a more effective information warrior, as I call it. And I'm still learning how to do that. But I think if you come and hang out with me and it's free, there's a lot of stuff you're going to be able to use to get smarter and to make more effective arguments. And I think if we can win one big argument this year as a family, we need to try to win the big economic argument. The economy is always number one, number two. And right now, despite the fact that the last 3 Democratic presidents created strong growth and lower deficits and American progress, and the last 3 Republican presidents created recession and economic decline and higher deficits, the Republicans are still trusted more in the economy than we are. And we have to change that. We need to try to change that this year. And if we can all start helping Joe Biden make the argument about his economic successes and echo become a very loud chorus, and even just look at the last 2 weeks in terms of the economic data, we've had continued unbelievably strong job growth, 13 million jobs created. In the last few months, the unemployment rate is the lowest in peacetime America since World War II. The uninsured rate, the poverty rate, is the lowest ever recorded. Of the 49 million jobs created in America since 1989, 47 million of them, almost all of them, have been under Democratic presidents. We have an incredibly strong and powerful story to tell about our economic stewardship when we're in power, and we need to get out there and tell it. This is a vital activity in this calendar year, that if we can get into positive territory in the economy and take away their lead, we're much more likely to have the kind of election that we want to have next year. And so some of this is just learning how to, and then the second thing that happened today, the inflation data, the inflation this last month was running at an annualized basis of 1.2%, lower than the Fed target. We may be in what they call a Goldilocks economy, where inflation has come down, growth continues, the deficit's coming down, and we're sitting in one of the strongest economies in the history of the country right now. And we've got to go tell that story and be loud and proud. And I have this exercise that I do, Wendy, if you've seen me do this in other presentations, where I talk about how we have to get very comfortable saying a couple basic things. Joe Biden has been a good president. The country is better off. The Democratic Party is strong. These are all simple declarative sentences. They're all true. We have to live in that space in our head every day to be loud and proud about the greatness of our party and all the good things that we've done and what Joe Biden's done. We've got to counter their negative sentiment with positive sentiment. And I think in order to defeat MAGA in the way that we all want to. The second thing I think we need to do this year is to have an expansion mindset. And I was talking about this before Wisconsin and Colorado Springs and Jacksonville, but it's, we grew our vote in many places in 2022. We just didn't do well, right? We grew, right? We got up into the high 50s in Colorado, Pennsylvania, mid 50s in Michigan, and in a bad year. It's an incredible performance. I think we have to think about Joe Biden got 51% of the vote in 2020. In 2020, we need to try to get to 55 this time. I think we need to grow an extra 4 points. Why? Because we need to make this election a clear repudiation of their extremism in order to start to loosen MAGA's grip over our politics and over the Republican Party. I'm sorry, I've been a little sick. I apologize. Is that we need to defeat them definitively and run up the score. And when I started talking about this in March, people are like, what are you talking about? Well, look, we just took away 2 Republican cities for them in the last few weeks. We took away Colorado Springs, which had been a Republican city for 40 years, Jacksonville in Florida, a Republican city for 40 years. We now have Democratic mayors in those cities. In Wisconsin, right, we didn't just win that Supreme Court seat, we won by 56% of the vote in a state that we didn't do very well or as well as we wanted to in the midterm. And so we're seeing that their extremism is opening up opportunities for growth for us and expansion. Young people, we can do better with Hispanics. The politics of abortion is creating enormous opportunities for us. The never MAGA, never Trumper people that we all know, right? We have friends who are Republicans who are, don't want to be for Trump. Well, we need to help the Liz Cheney wing of the Republican Party. We need to make them part of our coalition, grow our coalition to get to 55. And try to blow out this election. And I think the most important thing we can do this year to do that, in addition to winning these elections that we just won, which were incredible, is to launch a national voter registration drive for young people and to put young people at the center of our politics and not at the kids' table, and recognize that young people, when they're registered to vote as much as older people. They're just registered less. And the fact that they're registered less is our fault. It's not their fault. And because our system is hard and obscure. We're one of the only countries in the world that has voter registration. Most other countries, you turn 18, you can just vote anywhere. And we have these restrictions on states and all the stuff that happens. Our voting system is complicated and not easy to manage. And so we've got to launch a national voter registration drive. We shouldn't accept, just like we can't accept them being ahead on the economy, we shouldn't accept that they are, that the people that vote for us the most vote the least. Right, we've got to change that, and we have the power and the money and the time to do that. And so I feel really good about where we are right now. We had a great election in 2022. We've had a really good start to 2023. They are an extremist mess in a way that is unprecedented in the history of the country. And so I really believe that I'd much rather be us than them as we head into 2024 in every way, right? Policy, moral values, political standing. In every way you measure these things, I'd much rather be us than them. Then finally, I think that we also have to acknowledge that Joe Biden has had a good year, right? We've had the economic data is very strong. He managed the Kevin McCarthy situation really well. We're doing very well in Ukraine right now. He's been a good president. And I think more and more people, I hope, will come to understand that, particularly as the investments we made and the big 3 bills that we passed in 21 and 22 start to become more evident in people's lives. I think we have a strong story to tell. I just went through some of the economic data. But the second thing is the Biden campaign, I think, is off to a very strong start. First of all, they turned it on early. They're starting to build this massive machine that we need to go win the election next year early. The earlier they start, the bigger the machine gets earlier, and it creates this, what I call a virtuous cycle of participation. And I'm excited about that. I think that they're also expanding, right? They're going into Florida and North Carolina in their early ads. You should look at their early video, their media, and the messaging of the early campaigns, very strong. To me, it's very strong. And the foundational value that Joe Biden is running on is on freedom, more freedom, less freedom. freedom is the foundational value, modern value of the Democratic Party. It began with FDR's For Freedom speech in 1941 that established freedom as the objective of our governance and our politics. And that vision that FDR had built this world that we live in today that has been built around freedom and not dominion and not autocracy and not oligarchy. It was based on this foundational vision of freedom. And that world that FDR built in 1941 has created a golden age in human history. There's never been a time in all of human history where more people have had more opportunity to pursue their dreams than over the last, since World War II and the world that America's built. More people have lived in democracies. Life expectancy rates have exploded. Poverty's gone way down. People of color, women have unprecedented opportunities. And that world was a world that was imagined and built by our party. The fact that the world has gone through a golden age is because of the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party has probably done more good for more people than any organized force in all of human history. We're the heirs of that party, and we're being called to defend freedom and democracy the way that our forebears did, in a different set of circumstances, but equally grave and equally serious. And I go into battle every day knowing that I'm part of what may be the most noble political experiment in human history, the United States of America and the Democratic Party of the United States, who's done more good for more people and exported this American system to the rest of the world. I'm so proud to be a Democrat. I hope all of you are too, and recognizing that we have so as much work as we've done together. And I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and doing the work that you do. We've got at least one more big election ahead of us, where we got to go get this work done, get Joe Biden reelected, crush Trump, DeSantis, whoever it's going to be on their side, because they've made it very clear to us in the last 24 hours, if we needed any reminding, about how illiberal and unconcerned with democracy they've become. They are a material threat to the American experiment in a way that America's really never faced before. And, we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited to do it with you and excited to take your questions. And Wendy, thanks for pulling this amazing group together, and excited to have a conversation with all of you.
Great. Thank you, Simon. We do have some questions already coming through.
I'm sure.
Patricia wanted to know, how do we get more working class voters to vote for Democrats?
Well, I think that first of all, I want to just make sure people are aware of some basic data, right? Is that from 1992 to 2004, so from 1968 right to 1992, the Republicans won 5 out of 6 presidential elections. The only one that we won was Jimmy Carter's race by one. We won by 50.1 after Watergate, right? We barely stumbled over the finish line. And the Republican Party was the national political party. They were the dominant presidential force for 24 years. Many of you are old enough to remember all of that, right? And it was led by California Republicans, right? Nixon and Reagan, who helped build the modern Republican Party. And then Clinton comes along and is part of an ideological movement called the New Democrats, which had as their main goal to make us competitive at the presidential level again. I worked for Clinton in 92, and in this 8 elections since 1992 on, we've won more votes in 7 out of 8 of those presidential elections. No American political party's ever done that before. It's the best popular vote run of a political party in American history. We didn't win 2 of those elections, obviously, right? But we won the popular vote. And from 92 to 2004, we averaged 47% of the vote. In 2005 and 2006, I and a lot of other strategists and people that look at numbers and things realized that millennials and Hispanics were starting to come into the electorate in very large numbers, and that we needed to build a politics around them. And since then, we've been getting regularly way over 60% of the vote with Hispanics and younger people. And what that's done is that's expanded our coalition. And in the last 4 elections, we've averaged 51% of the vote in the presidential level, which is the best run we've had since FDR's presidency. So this is a center-left country. The Democratic Party is the majority party. We know that the Supreme Court doesn't reflect that. We can have a long talk about that. But I also just want to acknowledge, and part of my message in the Hopium Chronicles and the work that I'm doing, and I'm speaking to groups like this 2 or 3 times a week, right, is that we have to learn as Democrats to take wins and be more positive about our accomplishments. I think we're so spooked by what's happened in recent years and so full of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we sometimes don't understand how good the Democratic Party is and how successful we've been and all the good work that we do. And I'm trying to encourage our family to spend far more of your time living in the light than the darkness, and living and spreading, the good news about what we've done, than spending another 20 minutes looking at the latest video of how horrible Marjorie Taylor Greene is. Like, I mean, who needs to do that? We all know who she is. And, the new video that comes out every day, don't even look at it. It's a waste of time, right? Spend your time involved in this business, not getting overwhelmed by fear, but by taking constructive action, which is the work you do, right? The grassroots work we do, but also by spreading good and positive news. And I think this is a really important mindset change. And if you don't mind, Wendy, you may have seen me do this in other presentations. I'm just going to do a drill. I'm going to do a little exercise, a rhetorical exercise. And I went on Fox News for 17 years and did thousands of appearances. And I was an English major and a TV writer before I went into politics. So just bear with me as a former English major. I want to do an exercise about speaking in declarative sentences. So Joe Biden has been a good president, period. The country is better off, period. The Democratic Party is strong, period. No commas, no semicolons, no buts, no howevers. When we do the but and the however, Joe Biden's been a good president, but Simon, this, and this, we're taking Republican arguments, we're bringing them into our daily discourse. We're doing their work for them. We've been conditioned to do this by their right-wing noise machine. And so what I want to challenge you to do is to do our work for us, not their work for them. Telling our work for us is telling our story and being loud and proud about our achievements, spending maybe 2/3 of your engagement in politics living in the positive side. And I do this myself, by the way. This is something I had to go through as a political commentator that I really resist. I'm about to hit that tweet about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go let her get into our head, right? We let them into our head too much. Then we need to not live in their space. We need to go create our space and go on offense and tell our story and live in our story and our truths and not in their darkness. This is a huge discipline we have to go through. I know it's easy for me to say, but I'm actually doing it, right? Like this is what I do for a living in my own commentary, having been in this business for 30 years. And I'll tell you, you're much more sane when you do this, when you live in the light and the happiness and the good works, because the truth is that we are, this isn't a two-party system. It's not like there's two sides of one coin. There's not a left and a right. There's been a really good, successful, modern Democratic Party that's left the country better than it's found it every time we come into power, in recent years anyway, and a Republican Party that's trying to destroy the country. This is not two sides. There's not an equal left and right in America. And we can't let the concept of left and right as a Republican construct, which obscures the good work that we've done and denies and hides the malevolence and the darkness that there's now surrounding them. And we can't allow this left-right thing, Democrat, Republican, the leftists and the rightists, they're not equivalent. There's no equivalency to this. And so I can't even remember the question anymore, Wendy, but but that's just my, I just am I've been doing this for a long time, and Bill Clinton taught us as a young guy that, optimism is the Democratic Party's superpower. And I think the other superpower we have is all of you now, the millions of people who are getting up in a bottom-up revolution. In Israel, I get asked, why aren't we seeing big protests here? Well, we've been having big protests. It's the money that you give, it's the postcards you write, the text that you do, the canvassing you do. That's been the way we've been pushing back on them. And frankly, I'd rather have it manifest in elections than crowded streets in Washington. And so I'm really proud of all of you for what you've been able to do, but we still have more work ahead of us. I'm sorry, I probably didn't even answer the question. I'm a little tired and a little sick, but I'm here, Wendy.
Oh, I'm
anything
sorry
for
to
San
hear.
Diego. I know, anything for San Diego. Anything for San Diego.
Well, yeah, don't come here right now. The sun hasn't been out for about a year, it feels like. So it's going to happen soon, though.
Sorry about that.
Well, the question is one that there have been some variations on, which is Democrats have lost working class voters, Democrats
Oh,
have lost Hispanic voters, Democrats have lost some Black voters. How do we
we haven't
recapture
lost.
those?
I want to really drill down on this. We just had an unbelievable election. So there's no way to cast what just happened in a negative light. And, I joke that Democrats look in a room and there's, the unemployment rate's 3% right now, right? So there's like 97% of people have a job, 3 don't, and we're freaking out about the 3. And it's not that we shouldn't be concerned about the 3, but we also could say, isn't it amazing that 97% of people have jobs and we still got to work on these other 3? And instead we go immediately to the place of concern and darkness, right? And so we haven't lost Hispanic voters. We actually gained ground with Hispanic voters in 2022 now, right? We also in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and New Mexico, we won in 2020. Joe Biden won those 4 states for the first time since 1940. And we are doing better in the Southwest today than we've done in 70 to 80 years. That's all due to the growth that we've had with Hispanics. And if I could just talk, given that many of you are in California know what's happened with the Hispanic vote in California and how instrumental it's been to turning this into a one-party state. The same thing is beginning to happen in Colorado, right? The same thing's happening in New Mexico. Arizona is now more Democratic than Nevada is, which is almost unbelievable and hard. And in 2004, when Bush won the presidency, in those 4 Southwestern states, they controlled 5 out of the 8 Senate seats. They won all 4 states in the presidential election, and they won 14 out of 21 House seats. We now control 14 of 23 House seats. They don't have any senators anymore, and we won all these votes statewide. And the way to think about the Hispanic vote is that it's like a slightly smaller piece of a bigger pie. You still get more pie. If you're getting 60, if you used to get 65% and now you're getting 63, and the vote has grown, you actually net more votes. So in 2004, with the Hispanic vote nationally, we got 700,000 more Hispanic voters than the Republicans did. In 2020, it was about 5 million. So the growth that we've had, this idea that we're doing badly with Hispanics is right-wing, red wavy bullshit, right? And it's something that we have to reject, and I'm a little fired up about it. Yeah, look, we've been getting 51% of the vote at a national level. We haven't done that since the 1930s and 1940s. A lot more is going right for us than going wrong. Are there places where we can improve? For working class voters, we've got to make the economic case. I already went through that. For Hispanics, I think we lost a little bit of ground with Hispanic men during COVID, because COVID worked Hispanics during COVID had to go to in-person work more than any other part of the population. And I think that the effect of the shutdown was really dramatic in the Hispanic community. In the Hispanic community, more people died to COVID than any other demographic group. More people got sick and more people had in-person jobs. And so COVID was it was far more devastating in the Hispanic community than it was for, and also more Hispanics are uninsured, right? And are outside the healthcare system. And so it was a big blow in the Hispanic community, but we did much better in 2022. And I think with African Americans, we fell back a little bit nationally, but remember all the national data, let's just be very clear about this. In the battlegrounds, we did better with everybody. Outside the battlegrounds, as I said, and because we fell back a little bit in the 4 biggest states, the national vote numbers present an election that didn't actually happen. The election that happened is there were 2 elections. There was an election inside the battleground, which is where the presidential race is going to be fought in 2024, where we had some of the best youth turnout and youth performance in American history. We had very strong performance with Hispanics. We did well with women, right? We did well with everybody. Outside the battleground, we fell back. And what's happening is a lot of commentators are using these national numbers to suggest that somehow this was not a good election for us. This is one of the best elections that any of us have experienced as a Democrats in our lifetime. And don't let anybody take that away from us, right? And so, and in part because of this, the manipulation of data, that if you don't start with this premise, there were 2 elections, you end up with a distorted understanding of what happened. And so, yeah, of course, we have work to do. We have to do better in California in 2024. We need to do better in New York. We need to do better in Florida and Texas. But where this presidential election is going to be decided in 2024, we kicked ass in 2022, and that's was really important. And so we head into this cycle in very strong shape. And I'd much rather be us than them. I put this out today. DeSantis, I think Ron DeSantis is among the most loathsome politicians that I've ever seen in my career. I have a sort of an irrational, what's the right word? An irrational unlike of him in every day. And I'm spending a little bit too much time trying to beat him up a little bit. But there's a Civics, which is one of our poll tracking outfits. Has a track on him, favorability, unfavorable. He was like 45 a few months ago. He's now 36. He's now -20. He's 36.55 in his favorabilities. He's at -55 and he's barely known, right? Those are really bad numbers. And what's happened is that his rightward lurch and his movement to 6-week abortion ban, permitless carry, this anti-immigrant stuff he's doing in Florida, his numbers with Hispanics were particularly terrible, by the way, because he's just passed the single, I want everyone in California, because you're going to start to know about this, is that the immigration law they just passed in Florida is the most anti-immigrant law proposed in America in the last 50 years, proposed, and it passed. It's a felony if you're in a car and there's an undocumented immigrant in your car and if you drive an 8-year-old girl to school and she's undocumented, it's a 10-year felony sentence on you as the driver in that car. It's not just the undocumented immigrant. They've put these draconian, extreme felony level penalties on regular citizens just for driving a person in their car, right? This stuff is crazy. And what's happening is there's now been an exodus of immigrants out of the state. They're having worker shortages in the restaurant and hotel industry already. This is going to become a major national story, and it's going to become something that the Hispanic immigrant community across the country is going to be talking about, because it's their cousins, their relatives, it's people like them. And DeSantis's numbers in this tracking poll of Hispanics was horrific. And that's a sign that, the word is out that this guy's the most anti-immigrant politician in modern American history. He's a bad guy. And we need to make sure that, he's the most likely if Trump falls. But I also think he's really struggling because he's just a terrible candidate and just gone too far right. But we need to be prepared for him. All of you need to be studying him and getting ready to mount your arguments against him. And because we can't let him out of the extremist box. He's an extremist. He's the other side of the MAGA Trump coin. And we need to label him that in the communities that we can reach now, because he's a dangerous politician. And we have to be ready for him if Trump stumbles.
Okay, thank you. And well, the questions are coming fast and furious.
I'll give shorter answers
now. There's one coming from Leslie, and I'll sort of add my 2 bits onto it. And it's about California and how you mentioned there were 2 elections, and how California and New York and some other more progressive states actually did badly in the 2022 midterms. Yeah. So the extremism doesn't seem as much of an existential threat here. Yep. So how do we motivate low frequency voters, people who aren't registered to vote, and even ourselves to work on some of these House races in California that could potentially flip the House?
Well, many of you exported your labor to Michigan or to Pennsylvania, to North Carolina, whatever, but now you've got to take care of business in those congressional districts, and it really matters. And I think that Gavin, who's my dear friend and who I love and did a great job on Hannity last night, if you haven't seen the video, the party has to take this seriously and really mount a very aggressive coordinated campaign in these House districts. I think that people have woken up. I mean, Pete Aguilar now is in the leadership. He just announced that he's going to be building a fund to help augment the fundraising into these districts. I think we got burned on this. I don't think it's going to happen again. I think there's, just like in New York, there's been a fund created, $45 million fund created by Gillibrand and Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to focus on the House races there. And the DCCC is very focused. I think that, you've got Californians in the leadership and they're going to fight really hard to reclaim those seats. And so I think it's important for you as you guys set your agenda and what you're going to be working on this cycle to make sure that you've got one eye on those races, and we're doing more canvassing and phone calling and texting. And we lost there because we just didn't, our voters didn't show up. I mean, that's part of what happened in the redder parts of the country. And yeah, we can turn those Republicans in those districts into a threat because they're helping provide a leadership of the House Republicans and Kevin McCarthy that are hell-bent and pushing us into recession and doing harm to the country. We can do it. We just have to, and I think the strategic intent is there, and we just need to get about doing it. I think what happened in New York, and I'm originally from New York, I think New York was similar, but it also had its own dynamics there. I mean, New York, the governor is new, the mayor is new. I think that, Cuomo had been in charge for so long and taking care of business that when he fell, I don't think people really understood the void that had been created. I think that's in the process of getting patched up and fixed now. I mean, I think that, we've got to push the New York State Party a little bit more aggressively to be more effective and more modern. I think that's important. But I think the basic message that I have about this get to 55, this expansion idea, is that we need to be competing everywhere, right? I mean, that we have to fight everywhere. We have to grab every vote, win every election, grab as much real estate as we possibly can. Their extremism have given us extraordinary opportunity to go claim real estate in places like Jacksonville, Florida, and Colorado Springs, like in the last few weeks. We need to go continue to, grab this real estate and hopefully turn these places not into temporary Democratic wins, but permanent Democratic wins, and expand, our geographically, demographically, rhetorically. And I think that that's got to be a big mindset this cycle, right? We're strong, we're confident, we got to grow, we got to get bigger and bring more people in. And I think that, to me, one of the biggest opportunities we have in California is registering young people. And I also just want to put in a pitch for an organization called the Civic Center, which is based in LA. Entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, has founded the Civic Center, which is a program to try to get every high school kid in America registered before they graduate. And it's something I would encourage you to do your homework on. There's programmatic activity happening across the country around this. It's something that could be easily replicated in the San Diego public schools, because and in the public schools, because most schools now have community service requirements. So there's institutional capacity in the school to manage civic engagement. And also there's usually a Democratic club in all these schools, or most of them anyway. And if we can get every 18-year-old in the country registered, by the spring of 2024, that could make, let me give you an amazing stat, right? If we could get in 2024 people who are under 45 to vote at their same percentage of the population, which is not a crazy thing, it's just their same percentage of the population, Biden wins the election by 10 points. Just that one thing, right? I mean, the opportunity with increasing turnout with young people is one of the greatest political opportunities that I've ever seen, and shame on us if we don't take advantage of it. And I can connect you, Wendy, to some of the groups doing good work in this space, to see if they've got San Diego programs for you and your team.
Yeah, that would be great. And it's interesting, we have motor voter here. So basically anyone who registers for a driver's license is automatically registered. So registration's just a piece of the puzzle. And I think it's following up with those newly registered voters to get them out to the polls. That's probably, maybe in California, even the greater challenge. But
Wendy, can I?
Yeah.
There's just one on your three positive messages.
Yeah.
We've typed it in about 10 different times in here. And so far we haven't got it exactly right. So Joe Biden has been a good president.
Joe Biden's been a good president. The country is better off. The Democratic Party is strong.
Okay.
And I think when you are sitting there and getting wobbly and you're about to go click on the Marjorie Taylor Greene video, right? Go back to Joe Biden's been a good president. The country is better off. Look, if you watch the Hannity interview last night with Gavin, and you should all watch it. I mean, I don't encourage you to watch Fox News, but you should watch it, because Hannity starts the interview, and I had written a whole piece on this yesterday he starts the interview by basically saying, can you make the case for Joe Biden? I think on everything, he's been terrible. the economy, war, oil, gas, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the right-wing bubble, Gavin, to his credit, because I've gone on Hannity, he's very hard. And Gavin, but as you know, your governor's a confident guy. And he destroyed Hannity. And he destroyed the bubble of insanity on their side, right? Which is they believe that Donald Trump says every day that Joe Biden is the worst president in American history. And yet the economy today may be better than it's ever been in the history of the country, right? I mean, these things are the story, the false story that they tell every day starts from this basic place where they think that Joe Biden has destroyed the country. And that's why we are terrible, that we're a bad party. We're woke and Antifa, BLM, blah, 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 radical left, blah, blah. So the counter to all that, the core counter is Joe Biden's been a good president. The country's better off. The Democratic Party is strong and good, or whatever it is. And that's the core counter. That's the narrative war, right? It's not about messages or messaging. It's about the narrative. Their narrative is Joe Biden's destroyed the country, and Democrats are crazy leftists and who are out hell-bent communists to burn the country down, right? And that's why our counter to that is Joe Biden's been a good president. The country is better off. And the Democratic Party is strong. And I add the Democratic Party is strong piece because Democrats don't believe that. And they think that, we suck and we don't message well and we blah, blah, blah. And yet we've been kicking their ass, right? And we lost confidence in recent years in ourselves a little bit. And we don't have the luxury of that any longer, right? That's self-indulgent behavior. We have a democracy to save. We have to keep our focus on fighting them and not, fighting each other or, having misplaced fears and that all of us have, by the way. I want to be very clear. All the worries, all the fears, these are all legitimate things, but you've got to move past them into a place of action and engagement and not dwell and sit there for two reasons, right? One is you sit there, it's just bad. It's not good to go sit and dwell in the darkness, right? So for your own sanity, you need to channel it into constructive actions. That's why I'm here, right? That's why I do all these talks, because this is one way that I'm channeling all of my, it's like actors who talk about stage fright, right? And of course they have stage fright every time they go out, but they learn how to overcome it. And we need to do the same thing as Democrats. We've kicked their ass. We're strong. We've got a great president. We're loud and proud. We've made the world better for everybody, right? We got to go live in that space and go sell that space, because that space, you can't get people to come be with you if they don't think you've been successful. And if we don't believe we've been successful, we can't teach anybody else that. What our argument's going to be, come be with the Democrats because we suck, right? Like, who's going to go make that argument, right? And so, and the truth is, we've actually been a really good party. They suck. And so, this is one of those cases where the argument we need to make is actually also true. And so let's go make it, be loud and proud, and go kick their butt.
There was one other question about the organization who was registering young voters in LA. Do you know the name of that organization?
Yeah, it's called the Civic Center. It's a C3 run by a wonderful lawyer named Laura Brill. You can find their stuff online. They are building national programs, but there are also Voters for Tomorrow is a youth-based group that's based in LA. I mean, I'll connect Wendy, and if that's Help Desk Larry, if that's you there, I will connect you guys to some of the organizations, and maybe you can have them come speak to you or find out from the Democratic Party in California what youth groups are active and doing real work. But if you could develop a program where at UCSD or whatever, it's SDSU and so on, to help augment the work that's being done there by the student groups, it would be very valuable work to do. And I just don't know. You have to figure out what's going on and how you can support it, right? And help it and grow it, because there's already activity happening and you just want to augment the good work that's already being done. I can help you get connected to that, Wendy, and Help Desk Larry.
Well, I think I can get the message to Help Desk Larry. He's across the room from me right now. So I know we probably don't have that much time, but let me squeak in. First, Elise, we are recording this, and this recording will go out to all of you who are attending. Also, once Simon's finished answering questions, I'm going to talk about Hopium Chronicles a little bit more to give you an idea of all the information you can find there, and I will encourage you to sign up for it and hopefully even be a paid subscriber to it. And maybe just squeeze in at least one more question about with all this great information you supply and these affirmative emotions that we want to get across. And I will add that Simon has just treasure trove of data on the economy and how it's performed under Democratic administrations versus Republican administrations, about voting patterns, about election results that, you know, have come in really useful to me, and I think they'll come in useful to you. But along those lines, what are some of the methods that you think are most successful in becoming information warriors and taking this information out to the public?
It's a great question, Wendy. It's a great way to end. I don't exactly know. I mean, I'm going to be really honest with you about this. I think we've gotten really good, as I said earlier, about channeling loudness into campaigns, right? There's a system now, there's mechanisms, there's people, you've been doing it for cycles, right? And there's an experience. How we do it together is going to be up to every individual person, right? I mean, some people are going to email information, others will put it in Facebook, and others will start a Substack, and others will bother their friends at work, and and all the ways that we talk to people in our universe, in our world, right? And the key here is to recognize that it's like a chorus. It's not the individual voice in the chorus, it's the voices together that make the power of a chorus. And it's, even if I've reached 10 people a day, imagine if one of those 10 people is an undecided voter, or one of those 10 people is married to an undecided voter, or and that they get information from you, and then they share it to their friend and or their spouse, and then you've won a vote that you don't even know about it. The way to think about this is like it's being in a small pond and throwing a very big boulder in the middle of it and watching the rootlets come out. You don't really know how this stuff works, but it's how they're organized. They do this. They're organized, and they're networked and amplified, as I call it. When Donald Trump releases a video, there's millions of Republicans who are spreading that video through their social networks. And they've been doing it since the 2016 election. Part of what the Russians did was they helped the Republicans understand how to become networked and amplified at the grassroots level. And so they started doing this in the 2016 election cycle. Mike Flynn, I have a video that I'm going to put up on Hopium, but I've been resisting doing it because he's such a dark figure and I don't want to scare people. But there's a video that I have of him talking after the election about how they won the election because he called them digital soldiers, right? Which is the terminology that he used. And he ran the Defense Intelligence Agency. He was involved in these kinds of operations in the military against other countries. And he then came in and did it for the Trump campaign. And so the way to think about this is that, the Democratic Party, that we've harnessed now the passion, the love of country, the patriotism that all of you have into campaigns very successfully. We have this other thing. And I think what I'd encourage you to do in the group is to have a way of people sharing stories of what they feel to be successful about it, calling into talk radio, writing, into, I don't know that anybody read newspapers anymore, even though you had a decent paper there in San Diego, right? But however, letting people start in the way that I think people would share information about postcarding and, hey, I did this and I wrote into this race. How are people getting loud? And I think one of the other ways is that we can support the new independent media that's growing up. One of the things that the Republicans did is they expanded the definition of what is in politics to include media. And it started with right-wing talk radio, where people like Rush Limbaugh was as much a Republican as a politician was. And now Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson are as much a part of the Republic, if not more so. They may be the most powerful part of the Republican Party. We've never had our own media. We viewed media as something outside of politics. It's what we try to influence with our politics. Now I think we have to get smarter about this, and we have to start building our own media. And you've seen, at least, if you think about it, there's groups like Daily Kos and Talking Points Memo that have been early pioneers in this space. And now you have Pod Save America and Resolute Square and Courier Newsroom and Midas Touch. I mean, Midas Touch, which is based in LA, three brothers who started producing daily stuff during COVID, they now reach more people on the internet every day than MSNBC and CNN do. They've become a major national global media force. Three people and in Los Angeles producing, growing. They're now adding lots of people and growing as a media company. But it's partisan media, and we're going to need to do that as part of what we, getting loud. And I'd encourage you, one of the things you can do, Wendy, is to keep a dialogue in your community about who do you all think are doing a good job at this. Is Pod Save America something everybody should subscribe to? Is Hopium, right? I built Hopium because I felt that I had to walk, I had to walk the walk. I was telling people we needed to reinvent the way that we communicate using modern means. And I decided to go, rather than running a 501c3, C4 organization where there's enormous legal limitations on my speech every day, that by running the Substack, which essentially is a media organization, if you think about it, a media platform, I can say and do whatever I want. And so I endorsed in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. I was very involved in helping us win in Jacksonville. I can do anything I want. I can say anything I want. There's no restrictions on my speech, my activity, because it's free speech, First Amendment stuff, right? So I think we're in a period where the media, the way that we all talk to one another, is going to go through an enormous change over the next 18 months. Twitter is degrading, and as we're losing, Twitter is becoming not what it was. I think all of us are growing weary of traditional social media in some ways. I feel like over the next year and a half, we could see lots of invention and new tools being developed that allow us to communicate with one another. And that's part of the reason I decided I had to go do it myself, right? To use a new media. I've been very reliant on Twitter, and Twitter is no longer reliable for us anymore. It's being taken away from us by the oligarchs and by Elon and DeSantis. And so we've got to be very purposeful about our effort to be loud in all the ways that we have to get loud. And some of that is going to be media organizations that we support. Some of it is going to be the work that we do, and just take baby steps. It's like anything in life that you are beginner's mind at, right? To use that term, it's going to take 6-9 months, a year before you kind of figure it out. That's okay. Every little step you take, every person you touch is something that would not have happened otherwise. And so if 1 million people are doing it, it all adds up into something deeply powerful and influential, and that can change the course of history. And I'll just end by this one point. People ask me, what is hopium, right? To me, hopium is hope with a plan. It's the idea, hope is kind of a passive. It's like, I hope that happens, right? Well, we can't just hope that we win the election next year. We have to go make it happen. And so hope is hope with a plan. Hope in 2022, we wanted the election to be better than we thought it was going to be. And because of our work, we made it better. We changed history. We have more power than we understand. We have more agency than we understand. And I just, every day when I think about my party, what I am so proud of is that we're a party that's fueled by the work of millions of proud patriots who get up every day and raise the money and do the work. They are fueled by the work, by the money of 200 to 300 oligarchs. They're a party of oligarchy. We're the party of democracy. Our country was founded to create an alternative system from oligarchy to allow the people of the world to have the freedom that we talked about earlier. So what we're up against is not just an alternative political party. We're up against a politics that was the reason America was created in the first place. And so we don't have any choice other than to win here, right? We have one job, which is we need to defeat them as powerfully as we possibly can. And the reason I'm here with all of you is that I think the way we're going to do that is by harnessing the patriotism, the love of country, the passion of millions of Americans to sing and work together in this very loud chorus that's going to drown out the right-wing noise machine and reclaim our country from them. I am confident we can do it because we just did it, and we did it in 2020. We did it in 2018. But we have a lot of work ahead of us. I'm excited to be a partner with all of you in this work. And I just want to end by saying thank you. We wouldn't be in this place. We wouldn't have our democracy if it wasn't because of all of you. But we can't rest on our laurels, and we got to keep working hard. And so thanks everybody very much. And Wendy, thank you for the good work. Love you guys. I love La Jolla Shores. And all my kids are surfers because of all of you. And so thank you for that. And I look forward to being in touch with you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Simon. Feel better. You're awesome. And if everyone would just hang around for another 5 minutes, I want to just give you a little bit more information. First, pay attention to the chat because people have been putting in all kinds of recommendations on blogs, websites, and other information that you might find useful. I'm going to follow this meeting up with an email to all of you that will include some of the highlights and links to various organizations that have been discussed also. So hopefully if you didn't capture something, don't worry, we capture it all. But let me just share my screen for about 2 more minutes, just to give you a little bit more information. And that is about Hopium Chronicles, which Simon talked about. The URL or the website address is in the chat. It'll also come to you in an email, but I really encourage you to check out this website. It's full of incredibly good, well thought out, well-researched, data-driven information that helps me get perspective, that's helped me communicate with other people. And as he said, helps keep me in the light. Also, it's not just wishful, hopeful thinking. It's really good and real data, information driven stuff. So check it out. It's free, but Rosenberg is also trying to make this financially successful so he can keep doing it. So I also want to encourage you, if you like what you see on his website, to become a paid subscriber. So you can be a subscriber for free. I think if you pay to be a subscriber, it's $45. The most important reason to do it is so that he can keep doing this and getting his message out. But also paid subscribers have the opportunity to actually contribute, provide input on some of his initiatives, whether it's voter registration drives. He has another initiative around women voters that he's asking for input on. He does weekly and monthly talks where there's Q&A available for paid subscribers. So it's a way to interact also, and then to keep him going and to keep all this good information going. So I encourage you to do that. I also apologize. I know there were a lot more questions than got to answer tonight, and they were really good questions. So maybe one way or another we can tackle them here, or you could become a paid subscriber and hopefully get to ask him some of those yourself. Also, we have a link on our website. That's the Take Action San Diego website. Links to Hopium Chronicles, and then also all of the co-sponsors for this meeting. And one or the other of these groups may appeal to you, but I really encourage you to check them out. They are progressive activist groups here in San Diego, and we came together to help sponsor this event. And I know we'll be coming together to work on the 2024 elections also. Finally, I guess, thank you for being here. We are stronger together. We will stay connected. And I think if we do that, we will also win in 2024 and beyond. So thanks, everyone. I'll hang around for another 5 minutes if there's any burning questions, but otherwise, thank you so much. Look for an email from me in a day or two, and have a great rest of your evening.